You all please join me in Gassho. May this merit virtue be shared equally with all beings. May we together awaken Bodhi mind and be born in the realm of supreme serenity and joy. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandas. Namandas. Good morning, everyone. You all recognize what I just read? Joel recognizes it. What is it, Joel? Yeah, it's the end of the chant we just did. It's the, thank you, Joel. Good job, yeah. It's the end of the chant. In fact, it's the end of most of our chants. In Japanese, this particular phrase is called an echo, which is a transference of merit. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'll talk a little bit about what it means, and I'll go through line by line and talk about each one because our echo is very rich with Buddhist meaning. And there's a lot that we can reflect on. I also really appreciate the echo. We know we have some first-time visitors here and some newer folks. When I first started coming to the temple, the echo always struck me, right? Because we have this, we stay on one pitch for chanting Jusei-ge or Sambutsu-ge, or if we're doing Amida Kyo, it's a lot of one pitch. But then we end with this beautiful chanted together, and the whole community joins in this harmony, in this melody. So it's something that's both aesthetically beautiful, but it's also filled with meaning. So this particular capping phrase, it's called a transference of merit. This is something that connects us to the broader Buddhist tradition. Right? So you'll see that's a theme in all the talks. When it's my turn to give the message up here, one of my themes is always, how does the Jodo Shinshu tradition fit with the larger Buddhist traditions of the world? And the transference of merit is something that's common throughout all of world Buddhism. It's something that we share with all of our siblings in the Buddha Dharma throughout the world. And it almost always comes at the very end of whatever it is you're doing. So what's happening here in a transference of merit is we are recognizing all of the good that has been generated by making offerings, by chanting. Buddhists do it after meditation and after they hear the Dharma. So even after this, we're going to do it again. We're going to chant it again after this talk. Because all of these things in the Buddhist tradition generate merit. They help us plant good roots of practice, of intention, that keep us on the path, right? That put us toward the goal. Scholars used to argue whether or not transference of merit was something that, how far back it goes, because, well, scholars argue about everything. As a scholar, I know, right? But we have evidence that transference of merit rituals were performed in Theravada Buddhism, in Nikaya Buddhism, the earliest phases. In the earliest records we have, which are often inscriptions on donated statues and things like that, there's always like a monk who's saying, I'm dedicating the merit of this statue to my mother, right? It upends what we think about monastic Buddhism to read such things, the care that people have for their loved ones, for the family. We see this in the Theravada tradition even to today. In Theravada Buddhism, transference of merit is the most important part of funeral rituals. You have chanting done, you hire, your family hires monks to come and chant the scriptures and to generate good merit, and then you immediately say, and that's not for us, it's for our loved one who's passed away. So all of that merit, we transfer it, we turn it over to their benefit so that they may continue to progress on the Buddhist path. In Mahayana Buddhism, which is the larger Buddhist tradition, both literally that's what it means, but it's also the largest umbrella in the world, that we're a part of, transference of merit is also done for the deceased, but as we see in our version, it's also said for all beings. And that's the fundamentally Mahayana spirit. So in the Buddhisms of China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Mongolia, Tibet, all of those countries are Mahayana Buddhists. And part of the transference of merit is always All this good that I just did, all the chanting we did, all the offerings I made, all meditation, whatever it is, I give that over to all sentient beings. I give it over to everybody. So it's the fundamental Mahayana spirit. So let's look at the verse. If you feel like following along, I would encourage you, grab your Shin Buddhist service book, the purple service book in the pew, and turn to page 100. As I said, we'll go line by line. Line 1, may this merit virtue. The very first character. I'm not going to do every character. I'm going to hit the important ones. They're all important, but I'm going to hit the highlights. The very first character, gan. This is the same gan as in Honganji, right? Our head temple, or the Hongan, the original vow of Amida Buddha. It's translated here, not literally, but the word gan, the character gan, it means a vow. But it means a lot of other things. So it's in Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, bodhisattvas will take on a vow. I will vow to do this thing in the future. That's gan. But it also means to pray in the sense of seeking or requesting from a being, a bodhisattva, or even the universe. I seek, I request. And this is how it's translated here, how the translator has, I think, really done a good job of rendering this. It also can express our hopes and aspirations. So in Jodo Shinshu, right, we don't put as much emphasis on our own abilities to accomplish enlightenment, but we can definitely express our intentions, our hopes, our aspirations for ourselves and for others. So this whole thing, you can read it as an aspiration. We are stating together as a community, we aspire to, and then the next things that follow. So gan is like Amida's vow, but it's also our request, what we seek, our aspirations and hopes for this merit. So kudoku. Merit is a complicated concept. One of the Sanskrit translations is punya, but it refers to a lot of things. It's a kind of power in Buddhism. When you engage in spiritual practice, it's sometimes referred to as virtuous roots. So even by just chanting something, in Buddhism, even if you don't know what it means, right, you're planting good roots of orientation. One way that I explain this to my students at PLU is that it's like building up good habits, right? You do something once, it's not yet a habit, but you do it day in and day out, you really start to kind of reorient your life toward this thing that's becoming a habit. If you've ever learned a musical instrument or a sport, right? You start out with very conscious, deliberate, painful, slow exercises, right? But over time, it becomes a habit, becomes part of who you are. And virtue in Buddhism, gudoku, is seen as the same thing. Life after life, we plant these good roots. Life after life, we bow to Buddha. That's planting a good root. So and generally in classical Buddhism, the thought was, you do this enough, the next time you're born, you'll remember to do it, even if you don't know why. And then you'll go hang out with Buddhists. And then next thing you know, you start it all over again, right? You're building on those good roots. It also can refer to blessings that one receives for one's actions, which isn't a part really of our tradition. So this first line, may the virtue merit. May this virtue merit. This being the scripture we just chanted, or something else. We'll get into it. Let's go to the next line. Be shared equally with all beings. Be shared equally with all beings. So the first two characters, byodo, this is, it literally means something that's level, of the same standing, right? So if you had two surfaces, if they're exactly level, then they're byodo, right? They're equal. And so in this translation, it's used as equally, right, as an adverb. But in Buddhism, it means like kind of broad equality. It means equality in the sense of no hierarchy. No hierarchy. No one is privileged No one is disparaged, no one is disadvantaged. This is the mind of a bodhisattva, to view all beings equally. Those you love and those you hate, to see them equally, to wish good for them equally, is deeply Mahayana Buddhist. It's also very important in Jodo Shinshu, right? We hear about this a lot, that Amida's love and compassion is equal to all beings, equally embraced as all beings. And so in this second line, we are hoping this, right? This very thing, any merit we've accrued, we are going to have that bodhisattva mind of equality toward all beings and engage in giving. The third character, say, that's the character for Dana, the perfection. Yeah, I know, we always make that joke, right? Right. This is the perfection of giving. In Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism, there are 6 perfections that we cultivate on the spiritual path. And the first and most important one is charity and giving. Dana paramita. It's the first one, it's not an accident. And for someone walking the path of the bodhisattva, this is the first and most important thing. In Buddhism, dana is described in 3 parts. There's 3 kinds of giving. You know, it's Buddhism, we love lists, right? So there's 3 kinds of giving. The giving of material needs. So giving what people need, food, shelter, medicine, right? That's material giving. The second kind is the Dharma, giving the teachings of Buddhism. Sharing a word with someone, sharing just a small piece of wisdom is dana paramita. And the last, it's literally giving no fear, but I've seen modern interpreters say it's giving emotional support. So there's supporting someone's material needs, supporting someone's spiritual needs, and also supporting their emotional needs. These are the fundamental kinds of giving that bodhisattvas engage in. In this transference of merit verse that we chant, we are offering this merit to all the needs of all beings equally, all beings everywhere. May our Buddhist practice, may our coming to temple, may it benefit all beings, right? This is our aspiration, our hope. And then we get to the third line, and this is so Mahayana Buddhist. Okay, so let me ask you a question. What's a bodhisattva? What's a bodhisattva? This is not a rhetorical question. An enlightened person who decides to come back and help other people heal the Dharma. Yes. That's one kind of bodhisattva. That's one definition. How else have you, what else do you think of when you hear bodhisattva? This is correct, and there's more. Someone trying to become a Buddha or become enlightened. So it's, in the Mahayana tradition, it's someone who's on the path and someone who's achieved the path. Both are considered bodhisattvas. The really basic definition of a bodhisattva is someone who says, I'm going to get enlightened. By chanting this verse, that counts everybody here in this room. So we normally think of the highfalutin bodhisattvas, which is good. That's important we start there, Joel, so thank you. But in the most basic sense in Mahayana Buddhism, anyone on the Mahayana Buddhist path is a bodhisattva. So everybody here is a bodhisattva. And if you just got here today, welcome. If that's not an identity you want to claim for yourself, you're welcome not to, right? If you're visiting for other reasons, that's fine. You're not committed. You're not committed to anything. However, that's something you can accept. Right? You can take that on. I too am a bodhisattva. That doesn't mean I'm a Buddha yet, right? It doesn't mean I'm enlightened. In fact, I am not, right? We have our foibles and our mental things. But the path begins here in the third verse. This is when the path of the bodhisattva begins in Mahayana Buddhism. When you give rise to the mind of aspiration, the moment you think, hey, I'd like to become enlightened for the benefit of beings, I got a long way to go, but I would like that. That moment, that's called giving rise to the mind of Bodhi. It can also mean the enlightened mind. So this line can basically mean both things that you brought up, Donna and Joel. It can mean giving rise to the mind of supreme enlightenment when you get there, but it can also mean giving rise to that moment of, hey, I'd like to get there. I know I've got a long way ahead of me. So in this third line, we aspire, not only ourselves, all beings together, every sentient being, may we all someday achieve that. May we all give rise to the mind of enlightenment, and may we all attain it in the end. So for us normal people, we're all ordinary people, right? This is a big ask, especially lines 2 and 3. All beings equally, including the people I don't like. Can you wish them well? Can you wish for them enlightenment? In our political season, depending on where you are, can you equally think about Joe Biden and Donald Trump and say, I wish you well, I wish you enlightenment. I wish you supreme awakening. Not easy for me. I can say that. It's not easy for me. There are many people I don't like. And it's not easy to, it's easy to think of it in abstract, right? But to actually like draw the people to mind and think, I wish you well, I wish you enlightenment. Maybe I wish you enlightenment for sure. Maybe that's the easy part, right? Like, I wish you would just wake up a little bit. The person who cut me off in traffic or whoever, right? Whoever is a challenge for you, one of your coworkers maybe, right? The person who gets under your skin. And then what? Once we've given rise to the supreme enlightenment, the mind of supreme enlightenment, may we all be born in the realm. May we all go to birth in the realm of peace and joy. Sukhavati, right? So this is, in Pure Land Buddhism, this is Amida's land. In Buddhism, we talk about dukkha, the dissatisfaction of life that's inevitable. That's dukkha, and this is sukha. So they're actually related. So sukha is the land of contentment. Now, I'm not a Jodo Shinshu priest, so I can say this. I can think about this as nirvana, right, or awakening. That's not most technically an orthodox interpretation in Jodo Shinshu, so I'll just lay that out here. But for me, when I think about Anrakoku, right, the land of supreme peace and joy, I think of contentment. I think of freedom from all of the wanting things to be different, right, in life. So these are the 4 lines. So I'm going to close by trying to wrap this all together. So merit transference is a little ritual piece that happens in all Buddhist rituals. It's emphasized in different ways. And it's not always this verse. This verse is particular Pure Land Buddhism. But some kind of verse is said in which the person who is engaging in the practice wishes that this merit will go to the benefit of others, ultimately for their enlightenment, for the benefit of all beings, so that all beings may be free from dissatisfaction, from harm. In Jodo Shinshu, so I want to make sure I represent our tradition correctly. In Jodo Shinshu, the notion of merit doesn't come from our practice. It actually comes from Amida to us. Amida is the one who is transferring merit for our benefit. The presence of compassion in life is reaching out to us to awaken us, all sentient beings, to achieve the Bodhi mind, to go and be born in the land of peace and happiness. Technically, we're not even supposed to do this in Jodo Shinshu, a transference of merit, because it's like we're trying to say that Amida should do something. But the transference of merit has a long history in Jodo Shinshu. We have records at least back to the 16th century that people have been doing this in Jodo Shinshu in Japan. So we're following right in that tradition of offering a transference of merit. So I will just close with this. How can we see this in our own lives? We come here to temple We engage in a practice that's not a practice. We come together, we hear the Dharma, we chant. We prepare for our week, for living our real lives outside the temple. How does this impact your real life? Where in your real life does this come across? Do these aspirations? Where do you see them in operation? Where can you reflect on them this week? So in closing, I would like you to join me in reciting first in English the transference of merit. And then I will chant the first line in Japanese like we do, and we will chant the whole dedication of merit like we normally do, like we did with the Jusei. So we'll speak together in English, and then we'll chant as we normally do. So I'll take the first line. And I'm doing that so we can kind of keep the meaning in mind. May this merit virtue be shared equally with all beings. May we together awaken Bodhi mind and be born in the realm of serenity and joy. Ganishiku doku beyond on sei